So he's explaining that there is two levels of Mila. There's the Mila of Umaltem es Orlas Levavchem. You have to circumcise your blocked hearts. And he explains the heart gets blocked not only from Avedas and not only from indulgence in permissible matters, but the heart becomes blocked. Stam, even one have just engaged in the ordinary business of living, but it's not in terms of a conscious Avodas Hashem, that blocks the heart as well, and this has to be removed, this barrier, by the Yid himself. And to do this doesn't need Mesiras Nefesh. This is the Avodah B'chol Levavcha V'chol Nafshecha. As he goes on to explain later, these are Avodas that have agendas. They're godly agendas, divine agendas, but they have agendas. So he's saying that to have a sensitive heart, something everybody wants. Doesn't need Mesiras Nefesh. The Indian doesn't need the goal, and therefore it's eminently doable. However, we're in the middle, well, 2/3 down. There's a higher avodah. She said, than that, the pasuk, the second pasuk, the pasuk Parshas Nitzavim. Hashem, your Lord will circumcise your heart. Talking about a yid, he does not have an orla. He doesn't have that which coarsens the heart. The orla salev, his heart is not blocked. The haftar, he loves b'chol levavcha, and so on. So he's not into Gashmias, he's not excited about Gashmias, he's not loving Gashmias. His whole world is Aved the Ruchnias and loves the Eibishter and Yiddishkeit and so on. So what's missing? At the end of the day, the heart is a physical heart, a human heart. And it needs a milah. What's the human heart? The human heart, again, is that it can't escape itself. So therefore, there needs to be a milah, but this the Eibishter does, as it were. Hashem will circumcise your heart. And yet, okay, if it's God's doing, it's God's doing. It's all part of Avedis Ha'adam. So how is it both God's doing and our doing? Elo Shezel, answer, the answer is Mitzad Havaya Kifi Nasa Lekecha Kechacha V'Chayisecha. The pasuk says, "Mol Hashem Alekecha as Levavcha." So that means that who's doing the circumcision? Be'etzem is the Eibishter. However, it's drawn into Havaya Lekecha. Lekecha means your koyach, your chayas, your energy, into your world. So what is that? Goes beyond limit. Now again, it's ma'itcha. It's yours, yet it's beyond your limits. How could it be you and beyond you? To explain, because it's beyond the conscious faculties of himself. These are the two levels of love, of fulfillment in Yiddishkeit. But here he's holding He's serving the Eibishter in a way beyond his love, beyond limits. He's going to spell it out for us. We're getting to the punchline in a moment. Even though he's a created, limited being, every created being is limited. Here's the thing. Is it you or is it God? The answer is there's a piece in him that's divine. That's a part of the Eibishter above. So when he unlocks this godly soul through Bittul Mesiras Nefesh, that's the madrega of Havaya on the one hand, but Likecha, you. Havaya, the infinite God, Nasa Keichach V'Chayisecha, becomes your Your koyach, you live with that, and it defines your life. So then, Azay Umol Es Levavcha. He doesn't quote the whole thing because he wants to emphasize it's your avodah. This is circumcision of the heart, which removes the natural disposition of the self. Shemizbatel Gama Inyan Hagashmi Shebalev. This is a level where there's the circumcision, the removal of the materiality of the heart, and it's all relative. Relative to his avodah of b'chol ma'itcha. See, this also points out b'chol ma'itcha means, on one hand, it's boundless, but ma'itcha, it's your boundlessness. What's beyond limits for you, for somebody else, is attainable without Mesiras Nefesh. So it's all relative. But where does the Nakud of Mesiras Nefesh come from? Where does the Nakud of B'chol Meitcha come from? It comes from the Eibishter, meaning from the Neshama, which is a Chelik Alakami Mal Mamish. And that's the divine within him. That's the divine invested in him. But it's the divine, it's a Likus. And this is the Avodah of a Mol Avaya, the Kechos Levovcha, that comes after Maltem, as Olas Levavcha. One wonders why the Rebbe speaks to such lofty levels. Das, man muss sagen, dass der Scheich ist. At least glimpses of it on occasion. And at the very least to know. And maybe to aspire. It's continued. And the matter is, when thinking about God, and he adds in brackets, if we're going to talk about avodah, then it begins with thinking about the Eibishter. It's obviously possible to go through an entire life of observance and Torah study and piety, never think about God once. He's thinking about himself, his heart, his reward, etc. Of course, he's thinking about God, but God only in the context of how God rewards me. You do the famous story joke. Okay. So there's two kinds of hisboneness. This is all Yaakov Yisrael, kan de Nellinger, de Natachten, Maltem is alles levavchem, as opposed to Molavai lekechas levavcha. Right? He's translating these two levels on all of these planes, all of these ifanim, all of these ways. Now he's getting to the core of it, the hisbonenus. It all starts in the mind. It all starts in the attitude. We live in our heads, friends, so that's where it starts. There is hisbonenus benyan the kirvas alikim litoiv, as the pasuk says in Tehillim. That being close to God is good for me. David the Melech is saying this, and not necessarily beginning. Shalikusu toiv loy. Godliness is good for him. Maderech masha calls to liyav Hashem lakecha ki hu chayach. He should love the Eibush, is the pasuk in Parshat Yitzavim, because he's your life. Who doesn't love life? Who doesn't want life? So you want life. You love life. God's the source of life. That's living. It reminds me of a joke that my mentor friend, the Yankel writes, Shliach in Yesod told me. There was once a pauper, Mamash, another man, and he happened to come to visit the gravesite of Rothschild. But I was in the lodge, in the cemetery in Lodge. They massacred Yidden, but you've never seen such mausoleums, and the Jewish cemetery. But they built it, people, they were wealthy. Anyway, so he said, Rothschild, elaborate, like Rothschild that he sees, it's a beautiful, he says it's incredible, whole elaborate. It's not just a tombstone, it's a whole mausoleum. He looks and says, das ich gelebt. That's called living. So,
Perry smiling.
huh?
Perry smiling.
Very smiling.
Look on the picture.
Yeah. So the first darga, so this is the first isbonus. The kivas elikim litov. Das gelebt. You want a life, a geschmack of life is nothing like it. Mendel said, he once said to Hilke, they came out of Russia, but they were in America, just throw whatever it was. Hilke Zaltzman, the author of this wonderful book, he said something like, Hilke, don't you, he asked him, how are things here? It was not just Altak. She said, Baruch Hashem, you're freedom living in that just wrong. He says, don't you miss the old days? Hilke says, yeah. Then Mendel says to him, my best years were in the Gulag. In prison. Okay, that's sorry. Simon Yevishter. I once heard a Mendel speak. This is so indicative of a chassid. And he was describing his interrogations. They took him in, they didn't get what they wanted, took him back, and it's physical and psychological. And at one point, when they were really getting hot on him, he said, and he put it this way, "Danach give on freilach." And then it got really freilach, and they started. But who would use such language? Who would use such language to describe his torment? When they took him in, now they really going to get, they started to. He was using this euphemism. Danach give on freilach. And just continue talking, just this expression. I told you, I can't resist it. It's not in the book, I don't think, but it's a story that I read. Miliovאוויטש relates the story. He was a kid. He was present to the story, and I've told you many times, just Bekid said it was, I says he was out already, out of the Gulag. He was in Gorky, and from there, he for a little while, in a few places till they let him go. So one night he calls a Fabrengen. Remember the story? It was not a Yema de Pagre. And they said, I was the kid that went around telling people to come, not at the same time, quietly. It was in the 60s. Things weren't like they were in the purges, but it was still a difficult Zman. And the Mendel calls a Fabrengen. The 5 Chassidim came, and there was mashke and some kind of porridge. That was the whole food. The Mendel's Fabrengen, very geschmack, and no, like, what's the deal? So finally, after, he's very curious. It's late at night, took a lot of mashke. What's the Mendel? Why'd you call Fabrengen today? So he says, that's a very good Maisa. Remember the story? Yeah? But some of you didn't hear it, so I'll say Bekitzer. So he said like this. Here he remember the vote from the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab says that Klipper says the emes. And the bigger the Klipper, the more raw the truth they say. So I'm not going to elaborate, but just this one illustration. Hitler, and likewise now, what's happening? A Jew is different, and the Jew is not part of the world, and it's all the same. It's a terrible distortion of a very deep emes. Jew wants to control the world, etc. So he says they accused him of all kinds of things. Psychologically, he was a thief and an adulterer and this and that. So in their internal white knight interrogation, so what he would do is he'd remember the vote, and he'd think to himself, they're right. Yeah, they're right. So after the whole interrogation, back in his cell, they thought they broke him. So I'm telling you, they gave him fuel for Avodah. He'd find by himself, they talk right. Oh, Mendel, yeah. Whatever they say, all the accusations, moral accusations, glory, just want to be glory, just all kinds of stuff. But there's one thing they said to me that I couldn't find by myself. And they said to me, Futafas, said, you're a faker, a bluffer. Says you could have gotten out in these trains because of course, he could have taken the passport. He didn't stay because you knew that you would be the big chassid staying behind. You'd be the Rebbe. Nobody would come to you for advice. And it's all a huge ego trip. There's all this Mercedes Nefesh. It's an ego trip that you're going to be. And they said this to me. I go back to my cell night after night, and I trying to find it, because the clipper says the emes, and the bigger the clipper, the bigger the emes. So the Mendel concludes the story that the Fabrengi says, and today I found it. Oh, Mendel, I found it. So now he says, I can start out. Now I can start. Till now, I was living, fooling myself. It's the Fangzachan. That's why he called the Fabrengen, said with Chassidim, and he called, they're right. Whatever it was, and who knows, he didn't say. We wouldn't even understand it. So this is Kivras Elikim Li Toiv. I don't know what this, his darga is not his darga. His darga is the Chveis. V'lochen, it's continuing the text. Hey, nemesh v'monach belikus v'tei chais v'islavos. So this level of Kivras Elikim Li Toiv. Monach means elikt, he's lying in, he's invested in godliness with chais, with energy and excitement. Aval zem b'pnei shem margish b'zeh toiv, really, because he feels the beauty, the goodness of it all. And because she actually arrivos, she has a sweetness, binyan shel toiv iloy in virtue and in goodness, li toiv, l'chein etzayni bekirvas elikim, wants to be close to godliness. This is a love that's dependent on something. And the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, what does it say? The love that's dependent on something in the end won't last. The Rebbe says there's an agenda. The agenda is Yiddishkeit is beautiful, and I love this. His battle, that's not going to stop, because the matter which he loves is not going to be in his battle. The thing should be no longer like the Av of Amnon and Tamar. But still, it'll go on forever. As I said, a whole life. It's love of Medida Vakbala. I told the story the other day, and surely you might have gone. It's a little extreme. It's a story that Mendel told. That Mendel was extremely intolerant of pretentiousness, fooling yourself. It's emes, as you can see in the story now. So he said that there was a yid, I'll say Bekitzer here. They didn't say it was. Maybe it was. They would ask him by Fabeng, would have to tell a story, and he told two stories. And these are the two stories he told. One story he told, that once the Baal Shem Tov was traveling, they're leaving a town, but they're actually leaving a town. He was in the wagon with the Talmidim, and a woman comes out with an axe, and she's going to kill the Baal Shem Tov. She's going to kill him. And he urges the wagon driver, go, run, to escape. They just managed to get the wagon going. She's running after them. So they asked him, you were here in Shul when I said the story. So he asked the Baal Shem Tov, the guys didn't hear. Rebbe, you spoke from this woman, the Baal Meifes, that he is a miracle worker. So he said, yeah, because she meant with an emes. She really meant it. And this is, for that is. The second story that Mendel said was that there was a person, he's quoting somebody, that he was a big go, and then he learned the whole week, and he had fasted and lived on, like it says in Pirkei Avos, and bread and water, mamash agon, aporush. And every Friday he would sit on a certain rock. I think it was near the Beis Medrash, and people would come into shul and they'd say good Shabbos to him, and he would say good Shabbos, and this would, you follow? So one day someone took away the rock. So he comes Friday. I don't know if it's a true story or not, but it illustrates. He comes to his place and the rock isn't there. He was so distraught that he collapsed and passed away. So obviously the same man was saying his whole life was for this moment, sitting on the rock with the Jews to say good Shabbos, and the pious Jews should nod back and say good Shabbos, and deluding himself totally that this was his whole Yiddishkeit. His whole learning and davening was for this covet. Friends, it's not such a big, fantastic delusion. Trust me. So therefore, when it comes to this, he says, Chas v'Rebbe says, the Maimon, now he can't say that the matter is bottle, because Yiddishkeit that is serving him is eternal. But still, it's an ave, talking about an ave. This is not covered. This person, he loves Yiddishkeit, Shemedida v'Akbala, for Yerach HaVanasa, according to his understanding, Vasagas and his grasp, Binyan Li Toiv, how good Yiddishkeit is for him, ever deeper and deeper. That's not the B'chol Ma'itcha. He's not going B'chol Ma'itcha, exceeding, he's not exceeding, not breaking. He's not going beyond himself. It's what, as many years ago, my sukkah, I remember, Shalom Duchman, verbrengt, and his whole verbrengen once. Once upon a time, there was a tailor, a Schneider. What's the story with the Schneider? And he did whatever he wanted to do. That's the whole story. Whatever he wanted to do, he did. If he didn't want to do, he didn't do. So, more given a Schneider, like once upon a time, there was a tailor. The point is, a sweet, beautiful person, a tailor. But what? He did what he wanted to do. Never more. Then now. So the Rebbe is saying this is an Avodah. This is the regular Avodah. This we're human known. Everything we do, there's an agenda. That's how we are. All I know is me. It's got to be good for me. And he says here, words here from a maamar of the Rebbe Rasha, he's paraphrasing Moishe Rabbeinu. And Alavai, his heart will always be on this level that he loves Yiddishkeit. He's not into Gashmias, and he loves Torah, and he would be for it. This would be his avodah. Still, the Rebbe is not letting us go. Has to be the higher avodah. Al Yedei Yizbonen, those Vatov, the Kirvas Elikim said, Atzmei, godliness is good. Not good for me. Godliness is good. Lemitzad Kirvas Elikim Litov. The Emes. She's Avidosi B'chol Meitcha. That's B'chol Meitcha. Inyan Zeh Nasa, Yedei Zeh Shem is battle ma Mitzias Vatzir Shaloi. This happens when a person is ready to let go of his whole Mitzias, his whole image, his whole agenda. That's the lower dark of Litoiv. Haino, he's a nice guy, he's a chassid and everything else, and he's quite happy with that, just to maintain it and tweak it, it's fine. But he's ready to let go of that. There is the Metziah Shaloi Li. That's me. A Metziah Zu, Yesh Hergish. I mean, Yesh Hergish HaToiv Litoiv, and I feel that this is good. This Metziah feels that it's good for me. Look at the Rebbe's words. As long as he's hanging on to the me, achizah means it's just a little bit of a grasp. And the yachal lavei lavei the mitzad lekus atzmai cannot serve the Eibishter mitzad the Eibishter, stuck in himself. And it's an avodah apitoyre. The Eibishter will circumcise your heart. We're not talking oros halev, not talking about the heart isn't blocked. Given Shalei Shaykh Hetztay Oros Halev, he's such a level, he's not Shaykh Ben Oros Halev. He's B'chol Levav, he's a sensitive heart. He's removed it already. He's not into Avedis, not the Taivas Eter, and he's Avid L'Shem Shamayim. He's not into Gashmis, his world, his Posha, the Gishmak, and the Gemara, in the Maimer, in the Fabrengen. He loves it. And that's his whole life. So what has to happen? God's got to do it. It's got to come from the chelik l'kam mal mamash. It's really beyond the human ken to divest himself of his own self, sense of self. But that's kind of the gift. It's a gift that comes after the first avodah. Yeah. Continue a little bit. Yeah. So kol it's achiluk and the general distinction. Between these two levels of Aveda, these two is bonus. This is the Yaakov level. This is the difference between Aveda mitzad, operating mitzad, the level of the neshama that's invested in the body, the regel shebe neshama, the foot, the leg of the neshama. That's the level of Yaakov. So if it's invested in the body, that's consciousness, that's self. So the optimum there is to tear oneself away from material pleasures and delights and be invested in Duchandis, it's Herculean and Avodah. But that's the void of the leg of Yaakov. He's struggling in the world and he's tempted by the world, but he realizes that it pales, all the pleasures of the world pale to the pleasure of a life of a Yiddishkeit and Chassidus. And then there's Avodah Shmitzad HaRishon B'Neshama, the Avodah, the head of the Neshama, Shnikras B'Shem Yisrael, that's the Chelik Alekam Mamavish called, that's the Yisrael level. It's from, if he unlocks that, that's, it's quasi gift, but only comes through Avodah. Given Shanasa, Gamayin the Mala Vailkachas Levavcha. This is already a level that the Abish, as it were, circumcises him. He unlocks that level within him that's beyond him, that's still part of him because it's his neshama, and that brings him to a level of relationship with the Abish, mitzad the Abish. Okay, in general, what unlocks that is Peil Mamish Mesidas Nefesh. It's Peil Mamish. The tailor says, I don't want to do it, and he does it anyway. So why are you doing it anyway? That's he's drawing on. This is not the Bashamayim. Every act of really skafi and real Mesidas Nefesh is, at some level, this is a Malavai Kechas Levav. Every act of iskafia. Even small acts. But if it's a breaking myself there, Mali Kotla, Palga Mali Kotla Kula, half killing or killing is still killing. It's an avoid, it's an avoid of transcendence. And it's shaykh to everyone all the time. If we would just want the little is davening. So it's all good. But in this davening, it distracted. And he just gets himself, doesn't just, okay, accept it, but he's breaking himself. And he's focusing, and it's a little bit of, a bit of the effort. This is already touching this Avodah. It's not talking to God. The Rebbe is talking to us. The Abish is talking to us. The Pasuk is talking to us. And small things could look or not look. He doesn't look. He averts his eyes. It's a second. Okay, it's a small skafula, but it's a kechudish al machatz. It's a little, just a little point. But that's the nakuda. That's touching b'chol ma'itcha. Yeah, we'll just start the next. Yeah, we'll do the next few lines. We're waiting for the guys to come. Who's Lucy is here? The guys are coming. Steve, oh, Steve is here. What time are you davening, Steve? Where are you davening?
I'm davening this morning at Shomrim. It starts at 7. I'll be there. I'll be there tonight.
And tonight also, you mean empty seat tonight?
I hope MTC tonight. We're eating Shabbos. My father's. So we'll see if he wants to walk. But if he's willing to, great. Otherwise, tomorrow morning for sure. MTC
Okay, so you're davening shachas with the big with your father.
tonight. Tonight. You mean this morning?
During the week, shachas you daven with your father in Shomrim.
Today, yes. I'll probably be rotating.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll conclude here. We'll conclude here, and Beis Hashem will continue on Monday.